What's up, everybody? Jaxxsin here, and today I'm going to be talking about the Ashes of Ariandel DLC in Dark Souls 3. Before I get going, really get into this, I want a couple of disclaimers. The first, I apologize if my voice sounds annoying and you hear like snuffling. I'm sick as a dog, so forgive me that. And two, there's going to be spoilers aplenty in this. I'm going to be talking, don't get me wrong, I'm not showing you the whole area, but I'm showing you a great part of like the very first area you go into, and a little bit of the later areas, and I will be showing one phase of the final boss at the very end of the video. So if you don't want spoilers, you don't want to see any of this shit, feel free to not pay attention from this point forward. And click away, down click the video and say, fuck this fat fuck giving spoilers out, fuck Dark Souls 3, it's only been out for fuck 3 days, what a cock. Oh, another thing, if you're here for like lore stuff, I'm not going to be doing a whole lot of lore stuff, so if you want lore stuff, the only person I can recommend is VaatiVidya. Go check him out. My buddy Mike was the first person who told me when I started to get into Dark Souls lore, he was like, go check out this guy. I like him a lot. He does his research, he does a really good job. All of his videos are very cinematic, like he does an excellent job with the lore videos. Okay. So, if it's a secret to you at this point in time, I'll just spoil it. I'm not a solo Dark Souls kind of guy. There's a lot of areas I feel confident that I can do solo, and I probably could do solo. And even the areas that I usually call in my buddies, and we do it together, my brothers and my friend Rien, and like, that's who I've been playing with lately. Even when I do that, I'm sure I could beat these areas by myself, but Dark Souls feels really stressful and frustrating, and I'm just getting to the point in my life where I don't know what it is particularly about Dark Souls, because I had no problem, soloing the entirety of Bloodborne, all the way through the Chalice dungeons and Queen Yarnum. So, I don't know what it is about Dark Souls in particularly. I think it's mainly just because it's a little clunkier than Bloodborne, you're not as fast. I feel sometimes when I die, and like in Bloodborne when I died, I felt like it was always my fault. Almost always my fault. There were a couple instances where the camera angles got a little wompy and I really couldn't see to dodge properly and stuff like that. But for the most part, I'd say the overwhelming majority of my deaths in Bloodborne were on that learning curve of figuring out when to dodge, the timing of all the enemies, figuring out what all the enemies do. And in that case, it just felt, when it was my fault, you know what I mean? It felt like, okay, I can do this because I'm better than that. But in Dark Souls, there's just this overwhelming, like, you're just outnumbered and it's just, it's very trolly. It felt, Bloodborne, the DLC area is a perfect example. The Old Hunter's Dream is a very excellent example, where it moved more towards Dark Souls for my liking, where, personally, I like a challenge. I like difficulty, but I don't like overwhelming difficulty to the point where it's, like, I don't like skipping areas and skipping enemies. That's mainly my thing. And there's a lot of enemies in Dark Souls when you're by yourself, unless you're a caster or a mage or a pyromancer, something like that, a cleric. They're going to be a huge problem for you to do by yourself. Whole areas. And so I'm a Dark Souls co-op guy. I like co-oping with my brothers. It adds a sense of, like, it's still challenging to me, but it adds a sense of, like, oh, social activity. I'm playing with my friends. It's fun. I love it. And I know that's not the way Miyazaki intended it. He wanted you to feel alone. But, you still have those numerous areas in the game that you're forced to solo and things like that. And so, a lot of the covenants and things you got to be alone to go get, and some of those are really hard to get. Anyway, moving along. So that said, I just wanted you guys to know that, because I'm not a huge solo Souls guy. I enjoy the gameplay with the co-op more. Now that said, let's get into the painted world of Ariandel. It's the new zone. If you want a lore video, I'm gonna have a link to VaatiVidya's, because it's amazing. He goes by pace, like when you first get here, all the different lore about all the different things going on. And he'll have more, of course. But I'll have a link to that. So that tells you what's going on. So how does it look? How does it play? Well, it looks really fucking good. Okay? I'm not going to lie about that one. Like, this is one of the most beautiful areas in the entirety, in the entire game of Dark Souls. I think only a couple other places come close. One is the Lothric Castle. I really love Lothric Castle, especially when you start to get out on the rooftops and you see that skybox. You know what? There's too many to name. I mean, Ondorlando is very good looking. The Pontiff Solivan area is very good looking. I forget what it's called. It's the beginning of Ondorlando, though, I do believe. But either way, there's so many good looking areas in this game. This one tops all of them, in my opinion, because it's got the perfect mixture of pretty, but towards the end, this really like dark and grimy look that honestly reminded me of Bloodborne. The end of this game reminded me of stuff that I'd seen in Bloodborne over stuff I'd seen in Dark Souls to this point. Now, that's just me personally, and like I said, co-op, never really played Dark Souls 1 all the way through. Played Dark Souls 2 to the end, but didn't really pay attention to most of them. And from what I understand, this one's more closely related to Dark Souls 1 anyway, so... Anyway, that said... the enemies are very cool looking. I love these Viking guys, man. They're so fucking cool, and you actually get their armor. That's another thing. There's plenty of weapons. It looks really good. I loved the way this... I mean, Dark Souls is already... It's just such a beautiful game that it's still crazy awesome that, you know, you hit these wow points where your jaw hits the floor playing the game, and then later in the DLC now, they're still able to capture that for me after all these months after release, you know, I'm still able to get in and be like, wow, this looks really good. And it does. There's one area, I'm not going to show it to you because there's some things I just didn't want to show in this video. I figured I'd show like a little bit of it, but I don't want to show you guys everything. But there's this really cool part where it's an overlook and it's like an ice cave and you can see this giant structure and like trees. It's so cool. So cool. That said, the difficulty, it wasn't too bad for me, but I had been, like I said, I'm a co-op guy, so I'd been going in and out of two of my friends' games. Or just 2 games. 2 of my friends' games. Sorry, guys. I'm out of it this morning. I feel like shit. I didn't sleep that well. I've got gunk coming out of my nose. Anyway, so my character was fairly overpowered. I was sitting very good. I had a great shield. I had a really good +10 weapon. I had, you know, really good armor. So, for me, it wasn't way difficult, and I could have probably done it alone. It was this point where I didn't really want to do it alone, because I knew my brother was going to be doing it anyway. Why not do it with him? It's fun, you know what I mean? You get the benefit of the double souls from the area. You have a less chance of losing all your souls by the time you're done with the area. You know what I mean? And it's funner to me to co-op. And so that said, it wasn't too challenging. There were still a couple of areas where the host would die, or the Phantom would die, like, because there were some areas that were really hard, mostly involving those knights. This area is what I was talking about that looked like Bloodborne. This area reminded me of something out of Bloodborne, like crazy. It looks so cool, and the last boss too is very Bloodborne-like. Less than, I mean, I'd say the final boss of the DLC, it's weird because I feel like that with the Bloodborne, not the Cause, the Orphan of Cause, but the not Ludwig, what's his name? The first Vicar, I forget his name. Lawrence the first Vicar. That boss felt more like Souls to me. But in this one, it felt more, and it's the first DLC for each game. I guess the only DLC in Bloodborne's case. And that's a lot of people. I've heard some complaints that this is really short. I'm going to say this about it. It could have used one more boss. I'm not going to say that it should have had one more boss or, you know, anything like that, because I think it's exactly the way they wanted it to be. But it could have used one more boss. If there had been one more boss, I think there would have been no complaints from a lot of people. But a lot of people are saying this is so short and blah, blah, blah. And, well, I mean, it's the first of 2 DLCs that you paid, like, I think, what was it, $25 for or something like that? I mean, it's $15 just for the DLC. And in my opinion, it was worth it. I mean, I got to play it with my brother. I'm going to play it with my friend Rien, you know, coming up tonight when he gets some time off work. So, like, to me, it's worth it. I'm getting my $15 worth of entertainment out of it. And not only that, because it was coming out, it inspired me to start a new character, play it through again, you know, with my brother. And I got some new things. I, you know, realized some new things about the game. So at $15, I feel it's perfectly reasonably priced. I feel like it delivers on that value. I mean, especially since most people who are buying this DLC are wanting to play the DLC, you know what I mean? And if they're wanting to play it, they're really hardcore Dark Souls people. Or, you know, someone like me who does enjoy them a lot, but just likes to play them with friends. I'm not way hardcore Dark Souls, I'm not going to admit. I'm not going to lie and say that I'm hardcore Dark Souls guy. I'm not that good at these games. I have not played them nearly as much as other people. I have friends who have these fucking things memorized front to back. Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 2, and probably now Dark Souls 3. And so, that said, I'm not one of those guys, but I bought the DLC. I enjoyed it. I think it's worth it. You know what I mean? And that's coming from someone who's not into the lore and stuff. And from those people, all I hear is good things. Like, so, I think it delivers on its value. I think that this, you know, people saying that it doesn't, and it's too short, and it needed more bosses. I don't think it needed more bosses. I think it could have used one more boss. Most particularly in that room. I think after you kill all the bugs, if a boss attacked you, that would be pretty cool. But, like I said, I don't feel skimped on the purchase. I don't feel like FromSoft like pulled one over my eyes and hosed me down. I don't at all, because the thing was $15, okay? You get a beautiful, gorgeous new zone. You get to play with, either you're just by yourself, which is going to take you a lot longer than it took me, or you're going to be with a friend, and it'll still, you know, you're going to be able to enjoy the zone a lot because you're going to be clearing it in both games, or, you know, 3 games or 4 games, however many friends you got together. And that's the thing about it with me, is at the end of the day, I ask myself, am I getting... I just feel like at $15, this is a reasonably priced DLC. And if you own the season pass, it was probably even less than that with the deal they give you. In my opinion, it was worth it. I had a good time playing this. I mean, there's new music, there's new... I mean, these enemies are just so wicked. There's 18 or so new weapons. I mean, there's all sorts of new stuff going on in this game. And it brings new life to a game that you already love, that you've already played through, and maybe you play it through again, you know, and you get more out of it. And that's why I like FromSoft, the way that they do their DLC. In my experience with FromSoft DLC, it's always something that usually adds on to the original purchase because it gives you a reason to replay it. Plus, it gives you, you know, a new area, new weapons, new things to try out, to change completely the way you play. You know, I'm thinking of rolling over into New Game Plus, trying out some of these new weapons. My little brother has already been using this scythe that drops off this boss, so, you know, it's very cool. It's very cool. It reinvigorates the game. Definitely worth $15 in my opinion. Anyway, guys, those are my thoughts on the Ashes of Ariandel DLC for Dark Souls 3. Hope you enjoyed. I apologize if my thoughts are all over the place and my voice is messed up. I'm just not feeling that good today. But I wanted to do this video because I just finished it up last night, and it's fun. It's a good time. I enjoyed it. Let me know below what you guys thought. Until next time, keep kicking ass, keep being awesome, stay safe, and remember that I fucking love you.